Evolution explains a way in which our moral intuitions could have come about without them being trustworthy. So consider some examples then about the moral intuitions we have and how those could have come about without anything about them having to be true. So we said previously that in response to this argument from disagreement that maybe there is some agreement about some pretty basic moral principles. So consider the moral principle that killing innocents is wrong. Um, one of the one option here that we have is to say that this intuition has come about because we worked out the moral truth, and this is an intuition that's reliable and has been passed down over time. Another way that we could potentially explain why lots of different cultures share this intuition is that it's an intuition that leads to cultures and societies that are particularly long lasting. So, if you consider the fitness of a society with robust moral norms against killing, so societies specifically that have what we might call like deontological rules against killing, so killing is always wrong no matter the circumstances, we might expect these societies to outperform those societies which don't have these internalized moral rules. So, again, if we just think about what these societies might be like, if you were to live in a society where you have this strong moral norm and you've internalized it, um, that would lead to much greater societal cohesion, much more ability to create community projects, to work together on things. Whereas if you're worried about a situation where people don't think it's morally wrong to kill um, and are happy to kill whenever it might advantage them, this is going to lead to a society that is very at risk and very likely to fall apart. And so the argument that people give then is that is it any surprise that our moral intuitions that we have now, which are so strong, are things that would lead to would have led to our adaptive fitness thousands of years ago. We can compare it to other kind of evolved traits. So, for example, like the reason why things which are poisonous to us taste taste terrible. So we're adapted to not want to eat things which are bad for us, just in the same way that we're adapted to not perform not to perform actions which are um, bad for our communities. And the similar mechanism is that the bad taste is similar to an intuition that there's something wrong. This is a deep repulsion that we feel when we consider actions that would be generally bad for our community. Um, it must be said, though, that this argument has some limits. So it seems like a lot of people often act in ways that aren't obviously in their own evolutionary interests. So um, the analogy can be pushed only to a certain extent, because it seems like in lots of cases we should expect people's moral intuitions to, insulate um, those activities which are best for the certain group. But we often see people think that um, you know the actions that may lead to the easiest life for themselves may not be the actions that are morally good. And so it seems like there's certainly a gap here about um, those things which are ethically acceptable and those things which are evolutionary advantageous. And so there might be a bit of a gap here that could be exploited to try and undermine this argument. But the main structure is um, I can give you an explanation of why your moral intuitions have come about without any part of that explanation having to suggest that those intuitions are at all true. So I can give a completely kind of naturalistic and scientific explanation for why you have these intuitions in a way that's pretty compelling. Um, and that suggests that if I can give you that explanation, there's no reason to assume that these intuitions are reliable in the way that we want them to be. They might be reliable in another sense. So we talked before about different senses of reliability as to where I might rely on my brakes in my car to do a certain thing. It seems like my moral intuitions might be reliable in being advantageous for me and others like me, because otherwise, they wouldn't have adapted. However, it seems like the more robust sense of trustworthy and reliable that we're talking about in terms of being likely to be true, that seems to be pretty far off what we can appeal to if we accept this kind of explanation.